Yes, I think it's working right now. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Yeah, bye-bye. All right. Oh, that's super loud. I think I put my mic is a bit far away from myself. Anybody can help me to do a quick estimation so how many packs are there in this classrooms? All depends, right? If today show up more than 80, I won't count for the attendance. Else I will do one by one. I don't need you guys to do introductions, right? That will take in too much time. I'll do a rough estimation. If I count your name one by one, 90 plus students, 5 to 6 minutes, right? If we can squeeze the break a bit more, I think we can afford the time, sir. Anyone can help me to do a quick estimation? How about you, sir? Can you help me to estimate how many people are there in this line? The entire, this section, help me to count. Let's do decentralized computing. How about you? Oh, okay. Help me to check on this, yes. You do a count. How many people are there in this section, sir? I want to make sure I have enough attendance before I start a class. How many? 17 here. 25, 17 will be 42. Let's say if another 17, I think here, right? 42 plus 17 is about 60. Another 20 more, yeah. You know, I'm using data points to correct the behaviors, yeah. I think in this class, I do want to finalize the project grouping as well. I think some of you wrote an email to me, indicates you have difficulty to find a group. So today, in this class, we're going to finalize all the groupings. For those of you who have difficulty or who have not started to look for a group yet, we're all going to fix in today's class. Yeah. 2nd of Feb, I think is week number 4. I think it's the time for us to finalize, right? You guys need to spend another 8 weeks' time to really deliver the contents of the project. Okay. Where's Wen Yi? Usually he stay there. Wen Yi. Oh, okay. Yes, sir. Of course. You have the freedom to decide where you want to see. Just sometimes we'll see that part is missing, I'm start to look for you. Yeah. I see. Any question from the previous lecture? Don't worry. I think later on, I think after the second, maybe second part of the lectures, I think I'll try to do a quick count of attendance. Mark your name one by one. All right? Yeah. Any questions from the previous lectures? If not, let's do a quick recap. What have we discussed? Besides run through with you on the Python code, on stock trading exercise, what have we discussed? Today we'll continue the second part of the Python script run through. What else have we discussed in the previous lecture? Use cases, right? Key review of the critical analytic methodologies. Anyone want to give a try? 2 or 3 points, the key thing we have discussed. Yes, let me bring you the mic so that you will be recorded as well. Wow. Take, yeah.
Some point about the clustering method like
yes.
K-means and hierarchy clustering, and also some method about classification. Yeah, basically some machine learning method. I can't name all of them.
I see. No, it's okay. This is a very good recap. Thank you very much. We briefly run through with you 3 key data mining categories. We begin with clustering. Clustering essentially have 3 subcategories. Distance-based. We use a key-means examples. Then we very briefly touch on hierarchical dendro. Then very quickly run through density base, right? Distance base, hierarchical base, and density base. And why do we need to apply clustering? This will tie back to the concept we discussed on the analytic roadmap, right? One type of descriptive analytics, because we want to reduce the problem dimensions. We have millions of customers. It's difficult to deal with one by one. We need to group similar customers together to reduce the problem dimensions. Our brain are not good at working with too many data points. Classifications. This is one of the most critical machine learning or data mining techniques. For anybody aspire to be a senior data professional, whether you're a data engineer or data scientist, you have to know this. To draw a line to differentiate between good and bad. To draw a line to figure out who are the customer going to responding to your offer and those who are not. Binary classifications. We'll also discuss how do we evaluate a classification engine, right? I know this is not a data science class, but these are the one potentially you might going to use for your project. Your project cannot be just process the data without a business goal in your mind. And that's the reason, right? We spend some time, half the lectures, to review the key data analytic methodologies. Classifications. How do we evaluate a classification engines? High levelly. Yes, Tanya. Confusion matrices, right? That's the one I think we discussed primarily. Of course, besides that, do we have any other ways? That's something you derive from confusion matrices, right? From there, you can also derive your F1 score also. ROC curve. That's the thing we didn't discuss because this is not a data science class. But there are ways for you to evaluate how good the classifier is. Then also, did we discuss briefly on associations? We talk about MBA, right? We talk about market basket analysis, the beer and the diaper examples. That's where we stopped in the last class, right? Did we spend some time to talk about forecast? A little bit. Qualitative forecast? Not yet. How about quantitative forecast? A little bit. I remember, I think I draw something on the board. For forecasts, especially time series forecasts, typically you're dealing with a few key attributes of the data. This is level. Or you can understand intuitively as the mean of the time series data, right? Not exactly the same, but just to try to make analogies. The second one is the trend. At the same level, did it go like this? Did it go like this? Or did it go like this? Same here. You can say, same trend, but at different level, it mean different values we use. Then on top of that, so level, trend. You have seasonality. We'll talk about forecasts. What do I mean by seasonalities? The same here. If you're trying to forecast the number of people going to Changi Airport in and out, obviously during the holiday periods, potentially you're going to see a peak, right? And that is seasonality because across years, every year you're going to see the peak, maybe near the Christmas period or CNY periods. That's the seasonalities. And some of the typical forecast method, I'm talking about quantitative time series based, right? Cool. ARIMA, I think this one we did discuss a little. AR plus MA, auto regressions integrated with moving average. During my days when I studied, I think the time series forecast, it is a standalone subject in US, I think more than 15 years ago. We're still talking about to determine P and Q. I mean, for those of you who are relatively new or alien to this, you don't really need to understand the details, right? P and Q are the parameter or configuration specs that you need to put into a remote time series forecast methods for you to do a proper forecast. And how do I determine P and Qs? You look at sample autocorrelations as well as the sample partial autocorrelations. That's during my days, right? We're still programming using SAS, I think more than 15 years ago. Nowadays, I think most of the Python library or advanced AI libraries that are using should be automatically recommend a proper P and Q for use if you're using ARIMA. Yeah. This is purely time series. For those of you who may want to say, hey sir, this is just a number crunching. Based on past X number of years, months of value, I want to do a forecast in the next 1 month, 1 day, or 1 year, T plus 1, T plus X. It doesn't really understand the driving mechanisms. This is today. I want to predict T plus 2 days. You're using ARIMA based on time series data, the historical information. You can do a projection here. But the issue is, you do not know what drives the number to be here or to be here. It does not explain. This is not like a typical linear regressions. Y equal to key X plus B. Or Y hat, if this is the estimations. Y is your dependent variable, X is your independent variables. So long you have a good enough R-square values, or MAPE, mean absolute percentage error. The X essentially explain why Y stay at the current values. If you want to control Y, you just need to touch on X. That's the beauty when you're trying to use a regression models or other model who can explain, help you to explain why. Time series, unfortunately, you can't do that easily. It only tell you at that point, but it doesn't tell you why. So there are people that say, hey sir, can I add in some explanations or some variable? Yes, people who invent further to add in X. X, they call regressors, helping to boost up the accuracy a little bit more. You have some other methods, like unobserved component methods, decomposition methods. It's all revolving around a few things. One level, 2 trend, 3 seasonality, 4 is dummy to model some external events, roughly around that lines. Hot winters, etc. is all revolving around that line, but using different mathematical formula to do a curve fittings. That's pretty much about quantitative based time series forecast. Yeah, details, I think I put something there. Let me see. Yeah, I did put something there. These 2 pages adding together, it can be expanded into a 1 master level course. But we can't afford. And anyway, you guys, for some of you really interested in, this could be served as a table of contents for you, right? And with the GPTs, I think you don't really need to spend 13 weeks to study this. It will be much faster. Yeah. Okay? Qualitative forecast. Did we talk about Delphi methods? There are times you simply do not have the data for you to make any quantitative predictions. Let me give you examples. A few years later, if I want to know who will be the president of United States, Is there predictions to be made? Yes. Do they have some data? You have a lot of data across the entire world, but you do not know which one is useful. In that case, what would you do as a data professional? Anybody want to give a try? What would you do? To forecast or to predict who will be the president of United States a few years later. It definitely will not be, sorry, I shouldn't use the word definitely. Ideally, it will not be Donald Trump again because he already served 2 terms, unless he changed the constitutions, right? There's a small chance, but unlikely to happen. Assuming that will not happen, who will be the next? How to forecast? Should I collect all the economic variables, collect all the profile of United States citizens, and do some very complex math model? But the issue is that, how am I going to train? Difficult, right? The past sample, how many US presidents in the past you have, right? How do you train that? Not easy. So for stuff like this, there are times people use Delphi methods. What does it entail? I find some, it could be 10 or 5 experts in this area who spend a lot of time study political stuff. Each of them have some views. Ask expert number 1, they say the guy probably going to be, let's say, Mr. Curtin, right? Just a random names. Expert number 2, we see Mr. Rajesh. Expert number 3, they say, no, it will not be Mr. Rajesh. It will be Mr. Huang. 3 of them. So Delphi methods to say that it doesn't matter. If they are respected experts in these areas, we should take consideration of their view holistically and let the experts come to a conclusion collectively by themselves. So if there are 10 experts, partition them into 10 different roles, collect the prediction from each one of them, consolidate the insights together. For example, Mr. Rajesh have 5 votes. Mr. Huang have 2. Mr. Curtin have 1. You consolidate the stats. You present the stats back to each individual experts. You ask them, do you want to change your answer or not? For some of you, your answer is drastically different from your peers. You may want to consider to change. After a few iterations, and hopefully, the whole thing will converge. And that will be the answers for that group. And because it's qualitative, so you don't talk about accuracy per se, right? Most of the time you use that forecast, likely will be one-off. Technology comparisons. If somebody, let's say Apple, invent a new phone, the new phone have 4 screens. And if you are the data people who are supposed to helping your boss, who, let's say, not Steve Jobs, right? What is the new name? Cook, right? You're supposed to report to Cook to say, what is the predicted sales volumes after the product will be launched? T plus 1 month, T plus 3 months, and T plus 6 months. Given the fact Apple have never launched the sales of a 4-screen phone before, you really do not know how people will react. And there's no other competitors, be it Oppo, Huawei, Samsung, have to do that similar. At best, the popular phone as of now is only 2 screen, right? The foldable ones. You do not know. Then how? We tell boss, sorry, not forecastable. You do your own. So in the qualitative forecast, people see that if it's something new, you can always find something similar or close to it. So when Steve Jobs introduced iPhones, the touchscreen one, it's a totally change of the phone's design concepts. You potentially could use that as a reference to forecast your sales. Technology comparison, do some comparison, right? Subjective curve fitting is something very intuitive. For most of the product, when you first launch, no, I shouldn't, there's no coordinates. The take-up usually will be slow. Then when everybody realizes this is something useful, you have an accelerated growth, taper off, decline, then die. The difference is that the slope of this, the durations is stay at the peak. You follow this. There are more, but I think we probably should stop at 3 for your information. For your project, don't do this. Sir, I'm doing a qualitative forecast, right? There's no data. Where this is a data engineering course, we still hope you to use data to drive your decision makings. All right. Optimizations. This is the jaw of the crowns. How many of you have studied linear programming before? Raise your hands, please. Okay. A bit higher. Or from the same row, I think 10, 15 each. The rest of you have no idea what does linear programming do. Optimizations, how many of you heard of that concept? Oh, you studied LP before, of course you know that, right? For the rest, no idea at all. Then I probably spend a little bit more time, 5 minutes, to explain to you what does linear programming does and why it is so important for anyone who aspires to be a very established data professional who want to run the business together with the business leaders. You just cannot run from there. In lecture number 1, when we talk about the analytic roadmaps, did you guys recall? What is after predictive analytics? Prescriptive analytics, also known as operations research / optimizations / sometimes people call operations management, right? Not exactly, but similar along that lines. Why it is so critical? And let me share with you one simple example. Assuming you guys need to travel. Some of you need to travel. I know, Chinese New Year period, you want to go around, right? Visit your relatives, see your friends. You have a luggage box with the capacity of 60 little. There are many, many things you want to carry. Some are your clothes, some are the toys, some are the electronic devices. I mean, I only put 3 here, assuming you have 30 choices. Each of the items have some size. And each of the items give you a different utility value, different level of satisfactions. Of course, the example here I say profit, right? But let's say there's not profit. It's the utility values. Clothes, during the winter times, the utility value will be 10, maybe. Otherwise, you'll feel very cold. The toy, the size is very big. Let's say 10. But utility value is 3. I mean, for guys, maybe for ladies, no, it's not 3, it's 30. Yeah, I have to bring along my toys with me, otherwise I cannot fall asleep in a hotel. Yeah, you have 30 such items that you need to make decisions. Obviously, your luggage box cannot stuff all. You have to make a choice. So in this case, how do you make a choice? Most of the time, including myself, it's based on something called algorithms. I feel that something is important. Or maybe the items appear on the top, right, of the 30. I just put inside. Until I feel cannot fill in anymore, close my suitcase, then go. But is that the optimum ones that you can choose to maximize the utility values, to maximize the satisfactions? Or if this is the business case, you are the salesman, you need to bring the item to sell to some other people. What is the best option for you to choose those products to maximize your profit? How are you going to choose? One of the most naive way is to try all the different combinations. If there are 30 items, here is this, I try with one first. Put one item, I check whether the boxes can contain them. Usually it will be able to, right? And what is the profits I can gain from that, assuming I'm a salesman, right? Item number 1 in, I get what? $5. Feasibility? Yes, because the item is lesser than the size of the box. Item number 2, assuming you try only to put one item. Profit is 3, feasibility is yes, etc., right? Then after you try all the 1 items, then you try all the 2 items. C30, choose 1 plus C30, choose 2, C30, choose 3, da, 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 da. You try all the possible combinations, and you choose the combination which give you the highest profit. That will be the answers. But the issue is that the number of combinations, it will be too huge. There's no way you can try it all in a short period of time. Even use computer, it will still be tough. So people model this as a mathematical problems. And these mathematical problems, assuming the decision itself, I think is continuous, decision variable. I'm sorry to see that. I understand some of you doesn't understand what decision variable it is, but just follow my thoughts. If the decision you can make is that I choose 0.1 portion of these items or 0.11 this portion of item is continuous, then people can use the mathematical property to prove the vertex will be some of the vertex or one of the vertex will be your optimum solution, help you to maximize your objective. In this case, will be the total profit you can bring. Provided the solution space is convex. I think I don't want to bullshit. I think all this convex stuff or etc. Right? Yeah. So just trust me. Okay. So come back to this. To solve a typical optimization problems, you need to first of all define objective functions. And usually the objective functions in the business context will be associated with something you want to maximize. It could be revenue, profit, or something you want to minimize. It could be cost, turnaround times. So that's 1. 2, constraints. Come back to use these simple examples. You want to maximize the profits. Then you want to define your objective functions. Whether you choose product A or B or C or not, with the associated profit, you do a multiplications, right? So this will be your objective functions. Subject to constraints. What will be the constraints? The constraint here is the size of the luggage box. It's not unlimited. It's only 60 little. So everything you choose adding together will have to be less than 60. And you have to make sure it's a constraint. In a business setup, the constraint will be the number of the staff you have, the budget you have to run your business. All this can be your constraints. And the last one will be your DV, decision variables. You don't want to solve the problems that you have zero control. Decision variables are the one which will impact your objective function. In the same time, you have some control. That's called decision variable, which you can shape the decisions. These are the 3 building components of a typical OR problems. So compare here, the decision variable will be how many product of A you want to choose, how many product of B and C you want to choose. That's the decision you can make, right? I want to bring 1, I want to bring 2, I want to bring 3. And all of the decision variables have to be non-negative. Is there anything wrong in the example I gave? Did I model anything wrongly? Here, it's actually not properly done. The constraint here is actually 60. What I'm doing here is essentially just trying to sum the number of A product, B product, and C product I choose. I have to multiply the size of each the product with the quantity I choose. Everything adding together will be less than 60, right? This will be a proper mathematical model. They are linear. Why? Because there are no quadratic items, there are no cubes, there are no square root, there are no multiplication of two decision variables come together, which can be considered as quadratic. Assuming you can take fractional value for each of the products. Hence, this property will hold. You don't need to check every single point within the feasible solution space. You just need to go to the corner points or called vertex to check which vertex give you the best values you're looking for. In this case, will be the maximum profit. That will be the optimum solutions, or sometimes we call optimalities. Mathematically proof, that's the best. There's no other solutions in this solution space better than that. So then people will say, hey sir, I still prefer to try all the possible combinations. They're very intuitive. They talk about the objective function, constraint, the optimality. You need to study master level, then you know. But try all the possible combinations. Even those primary school students can do. The difference between the two is the number of combinations you need to try for a sizable problem will be too huge. Even sometimes with a supercomputer, it may take centuries, a few hundred or a few thousand years to finish the computations. And the reason why you model this as a math problem is to use the math property, again, reduce the problem space, or reduce the solution space to allow you arrive at a conclusion faster. So come back to the business domain. Why it is so critical, I keep on emphasizing, OR is something important. Why it is so important? Anyone? Because it's cool, it's math, nobody understands. I appear smart. Why? Let me ask you one simple question. If you are CEO of the companies, what is your number one KPI? Or what is the number one agenda you need to look after? You are CEO of a company. Assuming you run Google from tonight onwards, what do you think you will be measured? To get good revenue for the company, besides produce good phone, right? And good clouds. But how do you know what is the best way for you to get the revenues? What's in your hand? Different product series, the brand of the companies, maybe a few thousand super smart research engineers. What is the best way to deploy them to work for you to get the best outcomes? I put person A at job A, person B at job B. That's one combination. How about I put person 1 in job B and person 2 in job A? That's another combination. I want to try all the possible combination until I figure out which one give me the best incomes or revenues. Unfortunately, you can't do that, right? It doesn't have the luxuries to do experiments on your companies. But the concept is similar. You want to figure out a proper way to deploy your resources, limited resources because of facing constraints, to realize your company goal. OR will help you to solve that problems. So when you're at the junior levels as a data professionals, right, assuming you need to do some quick analysis, you put data. When you become a bit more seniors, people probably understand that you know a little bit about the business. You start helping them to pull information insights. Sometimes you may build model, assuming you move to the data scientist track, right? At the tail end, if you wish to be the partner of the C-suite, you don't have a holistic views how to helping company to maximize the revenue, how to help the company minimize the cost. By talk about maximize or minimize, right away, you talk about senior leaders of the company. Be in banking, be in financial services, be in engineering, manufacturing. Those two words are strongly associated with the C-suite, senior leader of the companies. That's the reason I keep on emphasizing. I think today was still early, right? Let me spend maybe 1 more minute. Can I use the OR concepts? Run a company, I hope you guys are convinced. Can I use the OR concept to run a country? Can I? If my country's mission is to maximize the utility value or happiness levels for the entire nations, and the constraint I'm facing is the natural resources, national reserve, collaborations among each other. Can I run that big conceptual mathematical model for the countries? At least conceptually. Can I? This is like a social experiment. Give you guys 30 seconds to think. I think if you don't appreciate this, it will be very difficult for you guys to really understand, have a strong faith in OR stuff. Can I? Anybody want to give a view? Do you guys heard about one term called planned economy? In Chinese, 计划经济. Prescriptions, or also known as prescriptive analytics. I tell you, today, this year, you produce 10,000 tractors. Because for agriculture needs, I need 10,000 tractors. Manufacturers of tractor company, you do 10,000, no more or no less, prescribed to you. For agriculture business, I need you to grow corns. For how many volumes? I need you to raise up the pigs and animal proteins for how many times? Because based on my estimations, my nation need that kind of capacities. This is not new. I understand most of you are very young, right? You're born after 1990s, right? Right. But I think you study enough about the histories. How many of you are very alien to a word called SU? Not Xiaomi, the new model series. It's called Soviet Union. They plan their economy use that. Conceptually, they are not wrong, huh? As compared to let each one play your own things. From the country level, top down, I prescribe what do you do for me to reach my global optimum point. to maximize the national level satisfactions or utility values. But opposite to planned economies, what is that? I give you an analogy. This is a hand, right? Put it behind. Something from Adam Smith. Invisible hands, market mechanisms. As a governor or as somebody who rule the countries, I believe demand will calibrate together with the supplies to reach equilibrium points. I do not need to tell you guys what to produce. You will figure it out through something called price, demand and supplies. So manufacturing company who produce tractors, you are based on the market demands from agriculture, from other downstream industry. You are good at sense. You will adjust your own supplies. I do not need to prescribe to you. And if I treat each individual company, each individual person as a rational agent, you obviously maximize your own utility values. So you have tons of different entities maximize their own utility values. That's market mechanisms. Compared to the other one, I do not need each individual agent's entity / company or individual to maximize your own utility values, because that might be at the cost of others. I need to look at the entire countries holistically and trying to find a proper resource configurations to maximize the total utility value at the country level and for global optimums. That's the two different ways to run the countries. Or concepts comes in. Which one is better? Which one is better? And people say, I think market mechanism, which characterized by United States, should be better, because Soviet Union already collapsed in the year of 1991. And for your information, India have tried that before. China have tried that before. Vietnam have tried that before. What's the drawback when you're trying to use OR to run the country? OR concept to run the countries. You have to base on a lot of assumptions. How do you know all those coefficients you put in your objective function is correct? How can you get all the constraints be listed up properly? What if there's something wrong? Then how? The whole system is a little bit fragile. The robustness may not be there. And in the past, the way for those economists to collect this information, what to do? They do survey. They go around to ask people, what do you feel, what do you think, right? Then based on that, they put there, I think this year we need 10,000 tractors. Is that the best estimations? 30, 40 years ago, that's the best they can do. But now, when we have so much information be collected in the systems, would that be possible? My gut feels that to run that at the country level is a big stretch. But at the company level, there's so many industries striving for that. That's the reason you want to build a big data platforms, to collect enough information, to define the problem you are seeing, and to optimally solve their problems. That is your competitive edge. That's how you build your competitors. It's not because the salesman tell me, SAP, Oracle tell me, it's very sexy they own a big data in company. Otherwise, you'll be lagging out. No, the business leaders are not silly or stupid. They know what they're doing. Aim to optimally deploy the resources by collect enough data. Okay, now, I hope by now some of you have a better grip about why I'm keep on saying why OR is important, OR is important. And for your information, there are so many Singapore leaders, essentially, when they graduate with OR degrees. Mr. Tony Tam, the former Singapore president, he graduates from MIT with OR master degrees. And a few other senior leaders. Yeah, I don't want to name that. Again, not to push you guys to do an OR masters. You don't have to, right? But I'm trying to tell you that For any of you in future, you want to be really the top guy or top data guy in the companies, I really strongly recommend that you have to master this. And in the companies, not all the company can afford this. I can let you know, because to find somebody who is good at this, it will be very costly. And also, when you use OR to optimize the problem you are facing, typically it will not help you to say, let's say, double the revenue want, unless your managers run the company in a super inefficient ways. For example, this is my efficient frontier. Revenue, this is, let's say, risk. I'll suppose most of the company hire a proper experienced business manager to run their business, right? It may not be mathematically most optimum, but it should be there, right? So by doing OR approach, you potentially can push the efficient frontier by another 5%. Don't expect 50%, unless you hire a kid to run your company. And this 5% have to be sizable enough for you to make a decision. I want to hire a team of OR decision scientists. I want to bring enough data. I want to bring the OR software, the solver to solve the problem to me. That also means the base problem have to be enough. Even 5% of the improvements will be sufficient enough to offset with all the costs I just mentioned. Small business won't do this. No point. If I make $1 million, 5% of that is how much? 50,000. Is it 50,000 sufficient enough to hire OR decision scientists? No. 10 million enough? Still not. You need a sizable business. So most of the company who deploy OR is very gigantic. In Singapore, PSA, Port of Singapore Authorities, is one of the largest transshipment hub. Process about 40 million 20-footer containers. You just say 40 million containers, standard container. You don't need to understand what does 20-footers mean. Second one, CAG, Changi Airport Groups. I have so many airplanes take off and station here. Right? You want to optimize the utilization of these runways. Same here. Logistic firms, DHLs, Shunfeng Express, they use this as well because they're dealing with millions, or sometimes even a few hundred millions of parcel deliveries. They need to optimize their routes. Semiconductor manufacturing company as well that produce millions or billions of chips. They have to optimize also. You need to have the skill to apply OR. Great as well. Okay, let's finish the key recaps of all the critical analytic methodologies. Of course, people will say, hey, sir, how about large language model? That one, I think I can't do, right? One is too new, two is also evolve too much, right? But the underlying of the large language model, the problem you solve are not too different from all this stuff we're talking about here. Okay, come to the business use cases or the domain where you apply some of these key techniques we discussed. We need to do upsell and cross-sells. In the banking context, if you need to send a credit card offer to somebody, that can be an upsell or cross-sell. Upsell means you already have something, right? I'd like you to do more. Maybe you're Gold card members, I want to use switch into a platinum or diamond card. Or cross-sell means I give you something you do not have yet. Maybe you only have a bank account, ATM card with us. But now I want you to start to have a credit card, different product series, right? So on that, what analytics methodology can you potentially use? Association or classifications. Before I send you the offer, I want to check how likely you're going to respond to my offer. If the likelihood / the probability is low, I won't proceed. Attrition, you can do that as well. You want to predict what are the clients is likely to switch from your business to your competitor's business because the activity level is very low. Same come to risk. You want to predict which clients, which customers is likely not to pay your loans, or in the business words we call default on your loans, so that you can take action earlier. You want to predict which customers potentially is laundry the money. But look at the transaction pattern you notice. How come the customer is a small business owner? But there are a few hundred millions transaction flows every month. For example, I'm open a mini market, selling the groceries. But every month, I will receive payments in the quantum of a few hundred millions. And within the same month, I'll also transfer a few $100 million out. Looks suspicious, right? And doesn't commensurate with my business profile. And these are the potential things that you can also build a classification model to predict whether the entity you're interested in have some concerns of money laundering or not, right? So there are numerous different areas that you can apply that. Fraud is the same thing. Yeah, portfolio management. This refers to the potential areas that you can apply optimizations. I'll give you a few examples, I think, for you to think. The reason I'm covering this is really to try to generate some thoughts for you, for your project. Doesn't mean you need to go deep into those analytics methodology, but eventually that you need to anchor somewhere, right? You can't just say, I want to process this data and that's about it, right? Even build a dashboard is also a use case to prove a business point. Portfolio management or portfolio optimizations. Now assuming you have 200,000 Singapore dollars, you want to make some investments. Your objective is to making as much money as possible, but without losing them all. That also means if you come to stock tradings, which stock I'm going to choose? Some stock have good return, but the risk is also high. Means that it's very volatile. So on the good days, you have 10% increase. On the bad days, you're going to see the price decrease by 30%. On what combination of the stock you're going to choose to maximize your expected returns? That will be one of the decisions you can potentially need to make. Then OR comes into the pictures. There are operational use cases as well. I think as one of the one I think I've done more than 10 years ago. The banks usually have ATM machines. I know you guys as of now doesn't really touch on that because you don't use cash. Yeah, and each ATM machine have a limited capacity for cash, right? Usually about 200 to 300 Singapore, 200 to 300,000 Singapore dollars, right? After that, the machine will run out of the cash. Whoever queue there will be upset. You don't have the money, right? So across the islands, you have about 2,000 such machines. How do you arrange multiple different vehicles to go around to top up the cash in the same time that you don't incur too much cost? The most ideal or rudimentary one to say that I have one vehicle for one ATM machines. I just stand by. right? When I see this cash out, I top up the cash. But it's too costly. You're gonna get 200 cars, 2,000 cars. The other one, you say, I don't care. I only have one car going around. All the cash you wait, right? But the customer experience will be very bad. This, again, is the optimization problems, right? For those of you who knew this, it's called vehicle routing problems within time window, right? Extension of traveling salesman problem, TSP. Any question on this? The picture ones, I think, is not so critical. Yeah, just an illustration of classification engines, right? How do we use the classification engine to produce a credit scores? Classifiers. Despite their fancy chart on that. Questions on this? Any of you are keen to know a bit more about the credit scores? Why credit score is pretty important? And how do I derive a credit scores? People may ask, hey, sir, you keep on talking about classifications. The good customer and bad customers. The outcome is 1 or 0. Why you get a credit score? How am I going to translate from 1 or 0 to a credit score? It's supposed to be 0 or something, right? Why the credit score can carry different values? Do you have these queries? I assume you don't, right? If you really have, come to me or you post their questions in the canvas. Compliance. I think this is the part I give you a bit of a business domain knowledge using 1 or 2 minutes. In a bank setup or in most of the business, which is sizable enough, typically they have 3 business lines. Line 1 is the one you go around to hunt for business, produce the revenues. Line 2 is called compliance. Compliance to make sure the line 1 or the business units, when they're going around to scout for revenue opportunity, you follow the company rules, you don't breach regulations. If they notice there's any signs, means it's non-compliance, they're going to remind you to change either your behaviors or change your business process so that you comply. Let's go line 2. This analogy is that while you see somebody doing things not correctly, like a police officer, you catch them, tell them don't do it. Compliance doing that. Line 3 is called audit. It's more like a judge. After people doing something stupid, year end, you review everything together and take that verdict, understand what they have done, look at the digital footprints and the trees in the system, you check whether there's anything wrong. If there's anything wrong, judge them. You're as guilty as what I've seen. Next year, you shouldn't do this. You do different things, right? So compliance, like a police officer, catch people in actions, analogy, audits, like a judge, expose the events to tell people whether they're guilty or not. And if there is, they do some structural adjustments thereafter. Business concepts. All right. Let's go to, are we okay to switch gear to the script? Or you guys want to take a mini break? Do you need a break? For those who need a break, raise your hand, please. Wow, now I have a good participation, Okay. How about you guys take about 15 minutes of break, then come back, I do attendance take-ins. Okay, now? So today I also want to finalize the groupings, finish the scripts, and also I think in lecture 4 I see how much I can cover, right? Lecture 4 is all about Python programming, cover different functions. So you guys back to here, 8:15, right? We resume the class. I do the attendance take-ins. Today looks better. I probably have 60 to 70. Let me. For those of you who have difficulty to secure a project groups, come to me now, right? I can help you. Yes.
I haven't submitted a project because last week I wasn't here.
I see. No problem.
But I saw an email from the task driver and he said I can ask him to start.
I see.
But I asked.
Quite difficult, right?
Yeah.
Only your names are Joey.
Yeah.
Okay, then 2%, not the difficult. Later, I think I'll do open buildings. So there are still groups 1, 2, 3. So this needs to be merged with other groups as well. Yeah. No worry. I'll help you to fix that. Yeah. You have no preference. You also don't know who is that, right?
Actually, because this is my elective course, my name is Masters for Data Science and Sustainability.
I see.
So
So you don't know the students' name?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know. Yeah. All right. I think we only have 2 students left with other groups. I think Jun already approached me. It's Liang Bo. No worry. Let's wait for him to appear. Take your time. We still have 5 more minutes for your break. My GPT just tell me, which helped me to do countings here. 67 students. 67 divided by 90. What's the number? Slightly better than last time. Last time I talked about 2/3, right? Now I have a bonus of 7 more students. I take the picture right after that thing of just now sessions, so everybody was around. So I think today I will still do attendance mark, but it will be very quick, right? I call your name, you raise your hands, that's about it, right? So plus minus 5 minutes, I think we can finish that. For those of you around, I think I'll do the counting now, so save some time. An Tae-yong, Bai Xin-yue. No, we're still early, don't worry. I'm doing the attendance taking. It's okay, right? Take your time. The class have not started yet. Bai Xin-yue, Ban Xiaomeng. Okay. Wei Yi, yes. Hao Nan. Last time I see he's in Hong Kong, still there, huh? Hao Nan. Okay. Min Ru, okay. Deng Han. Dylan. From all 3 of you, I trust. Okay. Ding Shen. Du Yifei, yes. Duan Tingting. Elaine. Yeah, she emailed me that she's not able to join. Okay. Never mind. I'll deal with that separately. Fan Yichen. Okay. Fang Tingyi. Okay. Gao Hefei. Yes. Gao Yuxin. Gong Baoyi, yes. Gong Kefei. How come there are 2 Kefei here? Gong Kefei. Okay. Gu Wenqin. Brandon. Hu Yiyue. Hu Xiyue. Sorry. Hua Yanru. Hu Xiyue. Okay, confirm. Okay. Hua Yanru. Huang Chenyi. Huang Junhui. Huang Weikang. Huang Xiaosu. No. Huang Yukun. Hui Yiwei. Yonghe. Ivan. Call in 3 times. Ivan Wang Zexi. Jia Zimeng. Okay. How do I pronounce your name? Jia Zimeng. Okay. Zhu Shentong. Kun Yu. Marcus、李博涵、李连宇、李兰宇。It's probably I think on leave of absence. I think I remember I received some letters from him. 李天宇、梁波。You do not have a project group yet, right? Okay. 林子山、刘瑞琪、刘延涵、刘延涵、刘一航、刘泽凯、马瑞瑶、明文帝、明维帝。Okay. 俊伟 ，Yes, I just saw you. 倪中阳，中阳 ，Are you around? Okay. 努不要输。Okay. 潘景涵。OK。庞波、彭俊伟、彭俊文、钱浩文、沈阳、世宇、苏元鹏、苏米达 yes， 俊恒、谭君 him not around， 唐立人 OK。 Oh yeah, just now you see that you understand most of the stuff, right? Thank you, 立人。丹亚 yes。 Talia Kalista。 Zkan Pui。 王慧谦、王君雅、王子昂、王子昂、王潘娜、文雨晴、文雨晴、吴并宇、吴伟斌、吴泽涵、谢宜国、辛浩飞、辛立文、徐博文、严兆军、杨建怡、杨小然、杨瑶瑶、姚路阳 OK。 玉培红、张子瑜、张博文、张丹萌、张景田、张小虚、郑康瑞、周君怡、周立伟、周衍之、周志普、 周之然。卓文杰。I'm getting a feeling by doing this, I see like 80% have been here, huh? Really? As I say, right? If I manage to get about, I think, 80 to 90% in the class, I won't waste everybody. I'll spend about 8 minutes to do the contents. Yeah, I won't do this. Yeah, it's not trying to force everybody to come here. It doesn't make a difference to me. It's to help you guys to do a proper discipline. Otherwise, 5 years later, when you graduate from IUS, yes, it's just like that. I didn't learn anything meaningful. I'm helping that to make sure you have a proper discipline. Yeah. So for those students, if you miss from the class 3 times in a row and I don't see a legitimate reasons, come to see me. If it happened in the company, this is way more serious than that, right? I understand most of you are still way younger than me, right? So maybe I think you have not been very mature yet, or due to various different reasons. If for medical reasons, explain in advance. Don't create misunderstandings, right? But I can't really accept the students skip the entire semester class, only appear in exams. That's, if you're still doing well, then why you come for this class, right? If you can't do well, you fail, then why do you register for this class, right? Bring some disciplines. But I'm not saying that you must appear every single time, even if you have a very legitimate medical reasons, right? Raise your hand in advance, drop an email, you have some medical appointments, you don't want to show up, fine, right? Everybody sometimes needs some special consideration. But don't disappear for the entire semesters. All right, I'll do the tabulations, but I'm getting a sense we'll get 80% of students showing up here. Or maybe let's settle the grouping first. People. Project groups. Junwei and Liangbo. Okay. For those project groups already full, there's nothing much I can do. There are project groups only with 3 students. Two, one. Take up a 4. You got 5 here. So how should I partitions? Not easy to partitions, huh? Because only this project have 2 capacity, 3 and 4. We have 5 students. Are you guys, I think, to form a project groups of 11 people? Are you guys okay? For the project 2, are you guys to take another 5? Sorry, not another 5. Another maybe 3, and this project 4 take another 1, or vice versa. You guys okay? Then this project, group 9, you have to be dismantled. Or you really want to stick together? If you want to stick together, can I put you into project 2? So you form a gigantic project of 11 members. Then for Liangbo and Junwei, I think I put you maybe project group 4. Then another one maybe project group A. It's okay, huh? Okay. And and now the name doesn't seem to be very fancy, right? I call project 1, 2, right? I don't want to use number to name you, right? Give yourself a fancy names, fancy but respectful names. Then submit to your class rep, right? Finalize that into Excel. I'll take that as a final copies. Afterwards, I don't expect any changes from there. Yeah. Also, it's the time for you to start to think about the project topic as well, right? And if you're in doubt, come to consult me. Most of the time after the class, we'll stay here for a short while for you to do sense check-ins, whether you choose the right topic or not. Questions so far? Nope. Then let's look into the code. How many of you have tried to run the code on your own? It's always this side, huh? Yeah, I understand, right? Your side as well. Do you encounter any issue? For example, you have difficulty to install some of the Python libraries. Or you can run without any issue at all. Do you notice any error in the code? There are a few, huh? Not logical error, but somehow there's some issues. You still can run, but there are some issues. No? Some of the color. When I say it's red, but actually you come up with purple or black, huh? There are a few at the tail ends, yeah. Now, I won't give you all the answers, otherwise people will, you know, spoil the games. None of you have the difficulty? May I invite, for those of you who have tried the code before, come to here. No, you don't need to do all, huh? You don't need to do my job. Maybe explain 1 or 2 sections of the script. Last time, I think we stopped somewhere around here. Anyone want to give a try? If you do a good job, you take this. I plan to bought for myself, but I realized today I drink too much water, right? So you can take this. Healthy choice, carrot juice from Starbucks, from the same school here. Anyone? How about give you another sweetener? Our quiz will be coming very soon, in about 4 weeks' time, early March. For those of you who score full marks, I want to give you something. Not in money, huh? I don't want to give you money. Yeah. Last year, I purchased Blackpink concert tickets. Not to go with me. You don't want, right? Yeah. This year, I'll be thinking that, you know, Blackpink doesn't come anymore. We plan maybe a meal together. Not one-on-one, maybe a few of you. If you really score full marks for your quiz, come to meet me near my office. Let's find a nice place to have a proper meal. It's much better than just a drink like this. Okay, huh? So, with that understanding, do we have a volunteer come to the podium? There's a Chinese saying, 重赏之下必有勇夫. Where are you, heroes? Don't have, huh? Then it's okay. I will continue. Yeah. From the very beginning first, I won't go into details, I think, at the beginning part, because already done that. Yeah. So that you guys can recap. This is an exercise trying to simulate a typical or a preliminary stock trading strategies. What does it do? It look at the median, look at different average values. One is the long-term average. The other one is the medium-term average. The last one is the short-term average. I have to do a recap, otherwise some of you probably really forget the context of the whole things. If this is the stock price, what is the duration I used earlier on? I think one is 200 days. Sorry, 15, 60, 200s. Yeah. This is the average price of the stock of the last 200 days? This is the average price of the last 60 days. This is the average price of 15 days. The trading strategy essentially is saying that if my average price of the last 15 days going above the long-term average means the stock have an upward momentum, it's the time for me to buy, or in trading term called long. It's upward momentum. But if the P average in the last 15 days is going below the average price of the 200 days, means there's a downward momentum, then I sell, because with the price going down, you sell now to minimize the loss. Then later, right, the loss will accumulate. Called short. Of course, you say, I don't want to use last 200 days. I want to use last 60 days as my long-term average. Also can. The trading strategies is as simple as that. And now we just want to use the programs to build everything and stitch things together. First things, you need to find a place to get you the stock price information. Where do you get it? Yahoo Finance. That's what we discussed in the last class. I ran through the detail with you. Almost every single line. PIM install Yahoo Finance, PIM install backtesting, matplot libraries and seabones for visualization, and future FFN, etc. Right? This will be, if you don't understand what does the package do, Google them. Right away you get all the answers. Install them. Usually, I don't know why, right? Every time I install complicated Python packages with multiple dependency, I always got issues. And typically will be Python version compatibility issues. So that's the reason I'm asking you guys around. Do you have that issue or not when you install these libraries? Right? Assuming you don't, then you need to bring in pandas. I still recall last time rounds, right? In a typical interviews, especially when I ask Python, what does PD stands for? The PD doesn't mean anything, right? But usually for data people, you always import pandas as PD. So in this case, this look like pandas used for data frame manipulations. All right, going below. Import SQ Lite3 and SQ Alchemies. Do you know what are these for? What are these for? SQL databases. This is where you store the information. Data storage. In a typical data engineering flows, you also need to store the information. People will say, hey, sir, why do I need to store the information? Can I put everything in the data frames and finish all the computations? I don't need to store anywhere. But the issue is that sometimes during those intermediary steps, people may want to do a quick understandings. How does it look like? You may want to store the information somewhere, not just inside the memory as a data frames, but also as some files, data points into your hard disk. So CSV become very handy. The database become very handy. And also, after you finish the programs, you may want to store all the backtesting results into those databases for you to do a proper reviews. Okay, but what's the difference between SQLite and SQL Alchemy? As the name suggested, one is the light versions, the other one is the enterprise versions. Okay? Let me go. So you use the Yahoo Finance, specify the Apple tickers, right? You want to download the data from Apple desktop. And you want to print out the key informations. You can use prints, but I think somehow here use the pretty prints, right, to make things a bit prettier. And it will look like this. I purposely save the output from the Jupyter Notebook so that I think when you run your things, you can compare against this. Do you see something similar? Ideally, it should be the same. So this is the output. Won't go through the details. You specify the start date and ending date so that when you put the stock informations, you know the starting points and ending points. So this is the download functions. Is there anybody have any question to say, hey, why they have 4 parameters? Can it be 3? And why is 4, not 5, not 6? Any of you have that questions in your mind? It's because the developer who write up the Yahoo Finance libraries have designed the thing in this way. If in future you want to write your own libraries, you can define as many parameters as you want. So this is determined by the developer of the Yahoo Finance developers. Okay? So after you get in the data, you always do not assume you will work out perfectly. You print out a few rows as a sample to take a look. The head function for this data frames is to show you the front of few rows. Typically, it will be the first 5. Of course, you want to see 10 rows, and just keying a 10 here. And also, these will give you a file names, right? You're trying to create a file names. Put these data frames into a CSV files, save to your hard disk. Why do you want to save to your hard disk? Why? What's the point? I already saved the data into data frames, but why in the same time I want to save the data into a CSV files which is stored on your hard disk? It's more convenient for you to visualize next times so that you don't create an unnecessary dependency on the Jupyter Notebook. And also, if in the Jupyter Notebook, you want to see all the rows in the data frames, what do? You print. Not so easy, right? Whereas if the information being stored in a CSV file, you can open that as Excel files, offline, without a dependency on the Jupyter Notebook or the programming environment. Later on, we're going to share with you, these will be further pumped into an SQL database. People may ask, why, sir? You store in the CSV not enough, you want to store in SQL database. To make it absolutely sure that you don't have the information leakage or what? This one is to print out the columns of the data frames. Why we need to print out so many things? Why? I understand most of you, I think, are junior developers, right? I think you really didn't have too much programming experience. That's why I keep on asking questions. Not all the stuff are best practice here. This is not a production grade scripts. The one I shared with you last time runs. At the onset, we have used a lot of pim install different type of libraries. That's not the best practice. Typically for production grade, all these library installments, you put them into a requirement TXT. Stand alone, don't merge that together with your main source of the code, right? Too messy. Here, the same thing. When we print this out, it's because we want to show to you after you import a data set, you want to check how does the column look like. So later on, when you refer them in the data frames, you don't use just high, low, open, or close, because the column doesn't name high, low, close. You have to make sure. Check them out. How does it look like? How should you refer to them? This is the intermediate step, helping to bring a good practice. But once you put this into production, means that you know the columns of the data frame. You actually can delete this. By doing this, you only slow your program down, and you don't have much benefits. But this is a class, right? I want to run through with you. Okay? After that, you create a SQLite database. Just say this is a database. Right? Check the directories. Again, you say, why do we need to check? If you're absolutely sure you know how to program, for production deployments, you don't need to do this, right, in general. This, again, is to every single step you do for the stuff you're unfamiliar, check, make sure the file you want to create, the object, SQL data object you want to create, indeed has been created. You don't make assumptions. When you have 10 different assumptions come together, when the whole thing fails, you do not know which assumption caused the problems. Hence, so every single major step you do, you want to verify. Indeed, the program has performed their steps. Check, check, check. Yeah, you say this, or has been created, etc., etc. Okay, okay, right? Come to next steps. Connect to the database. Execute these statements. And then commit. If you ask, hey, what's the difference between execute and commit? Go check online. These are the simple things. One is to run with some result. The other one is to tell, I see the result, I want to really insert in the database. Committed, make the changes. Okay? Again, this one, after you create their database tables from the Yahoo Finance Apple stock data, you check. You say, well, keep every single thing, so we're so nervous. Every single thing we do a check. Check from the database, select all, select star, from that table you just created. This is the table name, right? We just, oops, let me close this. This is the table name you just created. Print the length, means that you want to count how many records are there. It happens 2,700 plus of them. Means there are data have been indeed written into Apple daily raw data. Data has been inserted successfully. And because when you use the Yahoo Finance to pull the information, the column name itself is multi-index, which has been showing here, right? Which is not very easy to use. What you need is actually high, low, open, and close. So you rename this into high, low, close, and volumes. Then do this again. Okay? Very straightforward. Same thing, check again. Check the data set again. In this case, you don't list out all the records. You only show the first 5. So they look like this. Okay? Multiple verifications. This one is essentially share with you how do you use the data frames to connect a database and select and to use the SQL queries to read the data. Is it very tedious? I got the data into data frames, I dump that into a SQL database, then later on I use another data frame to link to the database and read the data. This is essentially trying to show you, right, how do you move the data around. In the realities, you definitely don't want to do those things. Wasting efforts. This is merely trying to show you if you want to move the data around from API call to get the data locally into the data frames. How do you move the data from a data frame in memories into CSV files? How to move the data from a data frame in memories into SQL database. And how do you create a new data frames from memories, load the data from SQL database? It's essentially just a different way to move the data around. Nothing very fancy. And also, in the data frames, because the date, I think, has been, when you download the data from Yahoo Finance, the date may not be the one you want. So sometimes you may want to change the format. Or you may want to force the date. When you download, it potentially can be, it can be recorded as a string, right? Not really have the date format. So you may want to use the data frames to date time function to force the date strings into be a date. Why do you want to do so? When you download something 2012-1101, it may be recorded in your data frames or columns, recorded something like this. The data frame may treat this as a stream instead of a date time object. What's the big deal? String then string is fine, right? It's clear like this. Why do I need to force it to be a date time object? What benefits do I have if I force using pandas functions to convert them into date times? Why do I need to force? Because later on, if you need to filter, if I want to retrieve all the stock price in the year of 2012, if you use this as the original strings, you need to do some string manipulation. You have to, first of all, strip the first a few leading characters and check whether it's 1012 or not. But if I use this date times, I can use a lot of time-related functions and do bigger than or less than or bigger than. It's much easier. That's the reason in these scripts we force these strings into date and times, because later on I can play a lot of functions. As compared to I treat them as strings, I have to write my own function to realize or to implement the bigger than or less than functions. Reuse whatever people have already built for. All right? Then after that, you check again. Get all this? What do? Have a feel of the data, right? You load all the data, you change the column headers into something you like. Then you want to visualize the data. This is how does it look like. Something similar to the Excel chart, right? But you have a lot of parameters to play around with. First of all, you can configure the figure size, 15.5, length and width. You can decide what do you want to put in x-axis, y-axis. You can decide the color as well. Here, I think it's some special serial numbers, right? Of course, you can type blue and yellow as well. It's recognized. But don't talk about funky color. It may not necessarily recognize by the libraries. Yellow, red, black, green, I think you can recognize. Right? You can adjust the labels, orientations. It can be slanted, it can be vertical, it can be upside down. It's up to you, right? Adjust here. And set the label to be times, Y label to be close price. And it can also limit the duration of the data you want to see here as well. Font size set equal to 10, because you guys are still very young, right? 10 is not small for you. But we present as a big boss, change this to 16 or 20. Simple, right? Nothing difficult until here at all. You see multiple different steps, move from CSV then to data frames to database. That I want to show you. You actually, if you really want to just plot the chart, you need this cell plus the Yahoo download data. Enough. As simple as that. Okay? So this is the trading strategies. It's the one just now I share with you. When one short-term average crisscross the long-term average above and below, then you have different trading signal being generated. Then you define 3 different variables, 15, 16, and 200. People will ask, hey sir, are you optimize the space in the right way or not? Why you use a variable to represent another numbers? Here only 2 digits, here you got so many digits or letters. You're trying to waste the storage space, right? Why can't I just use 15? Later on I keep on typing 15. Why do I need to use this? Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. For those of you who study OOP before, object-oriented programming, you understand that, in fact, you don't need to do that, I think. Even C++ also teach you trying to use the variables, right? So, for subsequent scripts, if you want to use the short-term average, you always code the same variables. MAV days, 15th. And if later on you see 15 no good, you want to change to 16, you can change here. One line of the code change. Later on, this impact from 15 to 16, you will apply the changes to all the subsequent scripts without going through line by line, change from 15 to 16 numerically for all. That's called hard code. You do not want to do that. In fact, the naming convention can be better as well. Because later on, if you change this to 16, right? Why is called MAV days underscore 15. This you can call MAV days short, medium, and long. So that the name of the variable doesn't give you confusions as well. Good programming conventions. All right? So this is the formula. How do you compute the simple average? During my days, when I use C++ to programming, frankly speaking, right? All these functions may not be available. I literally need to write my own functions to implement the rolling time window, to implement the average, then apply their functions. Nowadays, and there are many so-called developers in the Python community, right? They already implement these functions long ago. You just need to reuse that, save a lot of times, reuse. So this will help you to do a simple average in the last 15 days. But how do I know that's the last 15 days? Is there any 15 here? This is a 15. This is also 15. Which one will tell me that I actually used the last 15 days to compute the average? Is it this? No, it's this. This is the variable carry the value of 15 here. The same goes to 60 and 200s. Window is the parameter for the rolling functions. You slide the rolling windows, so every time you slide, you recompute the last 15s, last 60s, last 200s. But what if at the day 1, I do not have the last 15 days, I do not have the last 200 days, then what value would it produce? Default values? 0, because nothing, or none? Trying to figure out, if you run the code later on that, you go there to look into the data frames, you will get the answers. Trying to print out the data frame head for the first few rows, right? You will notice whether it's 0, default values, or none. Okay? Then you join all these average values together. How to join? In the last lecture, we talked about you got left joins, you got inner joins, you got right joins. Which join is this? How do we know it's inner joins? How come I never define key here? You keep on asking these questions, huh? But in this class, that's the only long, lengthy code I go through with you. For those of you who doesn't have programming experience before, trying to study this thoroughly, at least you get deep knowledge in these areas. You can tell people you have done programming before, right? Why is it in a joins? There's no join key. How come I just simply join like this? Where is the key? How do we know it's the date? Inexplicitly? Is it? Trying to figure out? Trying to figure out. Yeah. So every time when you use the library's function call, you always go back to basic. When you do a join, you need to have the key. Where is the key? It's not showing up here. Then where does it showing up? Is it assumed? Is it inexplicitly defined somewhere? Or is it because the pandas, data frame, have some default join link key? Is it index? Is it other things? Ask yourself. Keep on drill down until what you see from here matches with the concepts we study. You're okay. All right? Join. Join the average for 3 times. Each time you're joining, you have additional columns. I'm afraid that you guys don't know, so also print out the results. I forget to print out the results. So you can see the data will be like this. The first few days that you don't have the past 15 days, this is the value filled in by that rolling functions. Okay lah? Similarly, after you insert a few time series data, the average is also time series data, right? Indexed by the date and times. You plot them out, you see something like this. Green is the 15 days moving average. Red, median. Yellow, 200s. And you observe, when do they crisscross? The green one, I think, is a bit too light. It's not easily to see. I think here, for example, at this date, the green, which is last 15 average, crisscross the long-term average. Yellow means going down. You should what? You should sell. And indeed, after a while, the price indeed going down further. But does it going down indefinitely for a very long time? It doesn't seem to be. So don't blindly follow in these trading strategies. It gives you a downward momentum, but it doesn't tell you how long it will last. The same, this is upward, right? You see the green crisscross the yellow, it shows upward momentum. Indeed, it's going up, but later it come down again. Okay? Come to here. Generate the trading signal. What is the trading signal? We already defined just now the algorithms. When there's crisscross, a trading signal will be generated. Buy or sell, long or short. First of all, you initialize the trading signals to be 0 first. Then check the conditions. The short-term moving average is above the long-term. You make this trading signal to be 1. Means you're long, you buy. For trading signal, short terms. If it's less than, you make the trading signal to be -1, means you sell. The same goes to the median term, right? Use the 60 days moving, 60 days window as the moving average. The signal base, I think you don't need to care too much. Yeah. Anyway, just 1 as a reference. Afterwards, convert that into data frames, index them using the time and date. Later on, I think you'll be able to appreciate why you want to index them using time and date. And in the first place, what does index mean? In SQL database, we didn't discuss what is the index, right? In data frame, what does the index do? Note it down, later on try to check online. Yeah. It's only when you start to code, you ask questions, then you improve. And then next time, then I think when you ask the GPT to code for you, at least you'll be able to know what methodology does GPT use and whether they did it correct or wrongly. You need to have the capability not to code in the longer term, but to judge and assess whether it's correct or wrong. Okay, same thing. Use the head function to show the first 500. I mean, you don't have to, maybe first 5 is good enough. To check, indeed, the signal value have been updated into 0 or 1. I think back then I'm trying to make sure, I used 5, I didn't see anything. It's all 0, 0. So I want to use a bit more, see a bit more rows. This is trying to check, is there any time periods that the signal 15s means that the short-term trading strategy and medium-term trading strategies are taking different decisions, and show me the first 10 when they are different with each other. Because if we're trying to scrape the last 10 years of data up and down to find the short-term trading signal, which are different from medium-term trading signal, I use my naked eye to look for that, right? I probably need to screw a few hundred rows. But if the programs to check, they can quickly narrow down to all the date times that these two are different from each other's. I only want to see the first 10. I can tell that 2015 August, I have a few entries. If I need to screw from the bottom all the way from 2012, I probably need to screw, I think, of nearly 1,000 data points. 3 years of data, right? All right, same thing. Plot the figure out, configure the time series, get in the colors, you see something like this. This time round, what you focus now is the decisions. 0 means you didn't do anything. 1 means you buy or long. -1 means you sell and short. When you see something like this, means the whole thing is very nervous. After you buy, right away you sell. People say, sir, there's nothing wrong. I realize I make wrong choices. I quickly sell. It's called corrections. But don't ever forget, in the real stock trading, every time you buy, you have to pay the brokers commissions. Every time you sell, you also have to pay the brokers commissions. That is usually a sizable cost of your trading. When you do buy and sell too often, too quickly. If you're holding long enough, perhaps means this is the period that you really make some money. Then come to here, jitter, right, up and down, means that the whole thing is very nervous. Why the whole thing is so nervous? Because you only use the last 15 data points to compute the average. Of course, you move very fast. But if you use the longer time windows, maybe I use 60 days. With the changes in the next few days, it will not shift the average of the 60 data points too quickly. Hence, you can see, the jitters disappear. The base signal, needless to say, right? It's just the average. Anyway, this focus is not on the trading strategies. It's more how you manipulate the data. Okay? Do you guys already get a good gist of that? I think I shouldn't spend too much time going through, right? Because you guys really roughly know how does it work. So I'll not continue here for this trading exercise. There's another one at the bottom. How to call this correlation function. It's the same thing, right? Call a slightly different chart. You call heat maps, plot them out. The code is there, right? Even output, I give it to you as well. Backtesting, you just call the libraries, trying to check out. There are some trading terminologies. I think I won't go through with you, but it will be good to know, right? The library will help you to understand what is the total returns, what is the sharp values. You guys know what is sharp values? you don't look at the R first. When people tell you, my trading strategy is get an average return of 80% increase year over year. 80%. You invest $1 last year, now I give you $1.8. It's much better than the fixed deposit the bank offered to you. Typically will be 2 to 3%. Is it a good strategy? You don't just look at return alone. You also look at the volatilities. That typically is a measurement of the risk. Volatility, how do you measure? VAR, variance, or standard deviations. So you don't just look at the return alone, you also need to look at the standard deviation. The volatility is taken. People always say, high risk, high return. No risk, no returns. This is your return, this is the risk. By looking at this guy alone, when this guy take a high value, it doesn't mean this is a good trading strategies. You have to look at here as well. If here is all very big, then perhaps it's just an average trading strategies. Very high risk, give me very high returns. The good one will give you very high return, very small risk. Then you have to further subtract another term called risk-free interest rate. When you put the money, put in the bank, very safe, you get 1%, 2%, 3% of the returns, right? That one is the base. It's a given. You have to subtract them off. This will be a return. This will be the risk. That's called Sharpe ratios. There are variations of this, but this is just, today is what, Monday, right? Just last Fridays, I went to Central Bank. There's one guy trying to tell how great their fund is, but they are not to show the Sharpe ratios. They just plot a curve. See, my return less like this. Trying to ask him, what is the Sharpe ratios? I say, I don't know whether he doesn't understand or the guy try not to disclose. Right? When I do a quick computations, less than 1. It doesn't mean less than 1 no good, right? But you know, it's not that great. There's some other things, I think, like for example, like maximum drawdowns. What does that stand for? I will not talk too much, just in case some of you feel a bit bored. Yeah. Spend some time to understand the key things if you really very much have the interest on tradings, right? These are all printed out already. Okay? Script. Another alternative to get the data. This is interesting. I think some of you may need to use this frequently in futures. Just now, the Yahoo Finance give you a structured way to download the data from them called API, something along that line, right? You call the functions, you get the data. But a lot of times, what you're going to see is only a web page. You don't know what function to call. Or maybe the service provider doesn't give you that function for you to call. But you still want to have the data. And how? Hire a few interns, look at the screen, copy one by one, copy and paste, put it into Excel file. That's something I've done many years ago. It costs a lot of money because interns are also not so cheap. Yeah, I recall year 2017, almost 9 years ago. We need to get some data online. I literally hired more than 10 interns to come in the house to help us to do desktop research. And back then, it's probably because my ignorance. I didn't know Beautiful Soup can help me to do that web scrapings. Maybe even I know that for me to develop probably will cost more than the internet, right? So I decided to use maybe the more intuitive way. And those interns are very happy. They work in a bank, right? So, and they also have a chance to work with the BCG folks as well. They feel happy, motivated. But anyway, there are a way for you to do a proper web scrapings. Use Beautiful Soup as well as Seleniums. But you make sure that I think you respect the copyrights as well. Huh? So there are certain websites, they make it very clear, you can read, but it's not correct for you to script the data from their websites. And in fact, in the backend, they can probably detect you're using a bot to download their data illegally. And after a short while, they're going to reject your request. Okay? Spend some time to read the part 2. It's not that difficult, it's just tedious, because you have to analyze in the backend. Let me see what I can hear. Is there any developer tool for me to see? Let me go to the web page. Developer tool. You have to understand the HTML structure in the backend. For you to find the right sections which the data is encapsulated. Or tool. Here. No. I don't want to use the AUS website to do a demos. You guys know what I'm trying to mean, right? So each web page essentially will give you a HTML. It's actually in the backend is HTML in combination probably with JavaScript, etc. Right? You go to that developer tool. You figure out by doing an inspection to figure out which section of the HTML essentially have your data populated there. Then use the combination of Beautiful Soups and Seleniums. Figure out where to put those data programmatically. And that's about it. That's the data. And also, meanwhile, some of the web server are very smart. They detect in short period of time you have multiple requests, right? They suspect you're a bot. Then they give you something called captcha. You guys know what is captcha, right? Give you pictures, let you indicate which of the picture have the traffic light or bicycle wheels. Your program cannot easily deal with that, right? Then they know after 10 seconds, there's no movement at all because the program's done by you, not by human beings. They know they're not dealing with the humans. Then they just block the IP for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So if you can use the API, that's the best lah. Because API gave you a proper definition, allow you to put the information in a structured way. You do not need to analyze how the HTML has been coded up. Go inspect these elements and that elements. Faster. But nowadays, I think when you go to GPT, I don't know, right? Maybe you copy all the HTML, throw in the GPT, help me to write a scripper. Maybe it will be fast as well, right? So you don't need to use your brains. I don't know. So I won't go into details with you. You guys take a look. I think that's the script. Your project have to be fancier than this. This is really very basic. We didn't even touch too many data engineering. No, there are data engineering stuff inside, but not a lot of complicated, not a big volumes. It does give you a joint, yeah, but it doesn't have too many data transformations. It didn't really help you to dealing with the non-data. It didn't also help you to cover the imputations. Didn't help you to deal with the data quality concerns, etc. Because the Yahoo Finance data is reasonably clean. So the project have to be it will be a bit more sophisticated than this. Don't copy this and change from Apple to Google, then submit as a project. I guarantee you will fail one. Yeah. Questions? Let me take some water. Lecture 4 essentially covers some of the key programming fundamentals. I won't even see data engineering fundamentals because in the last 3 lectures we talked a bit data engineering fundamentals. This is more of the key programming fundamentals. We spend probably 70, 60 of the contents talk about how to code in Python for some special functions. Questions? Nope. This page is more of a recaps the stuff we discussed. Not recap, no new contents here. No new contents here. This has been brought in purely because I think in the lecture one, some of you to see that you don't want to just learn the tech stuff. You want to learn about the business. This is not a business, but this is a comparison into the data science track. How data engineering is different from data science, even though both of them need to deal data intensively. But my views, if you aspire to be a senior data leader, don't care whether it's data engineering or data science. Both you have to know. Because eventually, when you become chief data or chief analytic officers or head of some data organizations, you cannot see that you only know science, data science, how to build models. You do not have enough knowledge to deal with massive amount of data. Or vice versa. You know how to pipe the data, store the data, but you do not know how to analyze the data. So these two, if you aspire to be senior data leader, you have to know both. So, by look at these tables on the screens, can anybody help me articulate this in a layman term? Assuming I'm the CEO of the bank, explain to me how data engineering work is different from data science work. Look at this table, explain in layman terms. Anyone? When I start to ask questions, everybody lower their head. Look me into the eyes. No eye contact. Okay, let's lucky draw. When you, how about scroll up and down, you tell me to stop. Can Marcus. Marcus. Oh. You want to help to explain, but look at it here, use the layman terms to explain how data engineering is different from data science. If you're unsure, it's fine. You nominate somebody who you can feel can help you to answer their questions. Yes, who are you going to nominate? Going back to look at them. Yeah. We are. Okay. Will you choose him, he choose you. Come to here. Yes. If you're okay, come to here. Take this up.
So really it's like a business idea of explaining what?
Layman terms. Assuming I'm not a data scientist, I'm a CEO of the bank, right? I want to understand the difference.
I'll say something like, let's take an analogy of cooking. So data engineering is like preparation for cooking, where to buy the food, which means where to find the data, how to transform, how to get the ingredients and materials from supermarket to my kitchen, which is to move the data around, where to store them, find a good fridge or a freezer, which is to store the data in a very accessible and safe place. And I need to do some preparation works to make them handy. I need to wash the vegetable, I need to chop the meat into the forms desired by the chef, which is basic data cleaning and very rudimentary level of transformation.
Raw material preparations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I get them ready. And the data scientist is like the chef. They add flavors into the data. They cook the dish as desired by the intended audience. Basically, they use different complicated or very refined ways to get the data ready for presentation, for ingestion, for idea generation.
You do fancy stuff, right? For fried rice, you toast the pan and flip the things, right? Yeah. Okay. You guys understand what's the difference? You guys agree this is a nice analogy used by Wei Yi? Thank you. Do you want to take these drinks? You use the kitchen, I think you should deserve this, right? Yeah. Marcus, you okay with the explanations? Thank you. I think nice explanation as well. I'll be thinking maybe in future, so when I explain similar concept to other people, I can use this as well. But I can't talk to CEO of the bank. They are not familiar with the kitchen. But with students, I can. Yeah, nice analogies. Indeed, I think we give very nice analogies. A data scientist has always been regarded, I think, somebody who always the sexiest job, right? Mix multiple ingredients together, turn the raw, not so fancy ingredient, right? Garlic, so spicy. Onion, sometimes you get tears. Yeah. Sugar too much, you feel fat. Salt, I think, make you feel very thirsty. But mix things in the right amount, you create a nice dish your customer love to eat. Like magicians. In terms of Afro-whites, we all know that, I think, as somebody who have worked on a data science project before, you spend 70 to 80% of times to do what? To prepare the raw ingredients. The mix and frying is just a short while. Okay, so this too, in the big organizations, typically there are clear-cut rules. Small company, small startup, you do all. Data scientists, you need to do all the way data cleansing. Or sometimes you carry the title of the data engineer. The boss probably also expect you to build models as well. This is really just to emphasize, right? We do discuss this before. Data pipes architectures, the same thing. Lecture number 1, right? We'll talk about data generations, data storage, data movements, data processing, transformation is the same thing, right? Reminders only. Data source and different types. I think we all know you got structured data, rows and columns, the store properly in SQL databases and all other different type of databases. We also discussed the differences between OLTP and OLAP. They're all been structured properly. It's just they're organized slightly differently because they have different data schemas. We didn't talk too much about the semi-structured data, but I guess you guys probably roughly know them as well. Yeah, I won't call JSON as for semi-structured. They're still structured. It's just that, I think I don't want to complicate the things, right? So, unstructured data, it doesn't have a proper format typically, right? The text usually be considered as unstructured data. But again, even text, they're unstructured in its nature. It can be still organized in certain ways. For example, text files are stored in different TXT. It's probably slightly more difficult to process than they store in rows and columns. Despite in both times, in both scenarios, they probably can consider as unstructured because the length of this text, I think, is not deterministic. Real-time streams and batch data, I think we'll talk about distributed systems. We're going to discuss them in more details. And the reason why you want to have real-time data, sometimes the decision needs to be made quickly. And let me give you business examples. When you're going to fly overseas from Changi Airport, your telco may detect you are near the airport based on the locations you are in and based on the inference you're going to travel overseas. Maybe that they want to cross-sell you maybe a roaming data plans. Right? And they need real-time information because if they do a batch, means the T+1 days send you across, you already moved to the other countries. It may be too late. And similarly, when the telco detect you are in Takashimaya. Any of you know where is Takashimaya? Yes. Any of you don't know where is Takashimaya? Ladies, no? Raise your hand. You don't know where is Takashimaya? And if you score full marks, maybe we go there for a meal. Figure out where is Takashimaya, near Orchard Road. Yeah. If they detect you're near Takashimaya, the Chanel store. You're not going to spend one day in a Chanel store, right? They can send you a promotional message. If you buy a Chanel product for the second one, we give you 20% discount. Time sensitive, location sensitive. Because when you go around for shoppings, you're not going to stay there for long. So real-time information is critical. But not all are time sensitive. Some are not. If people want to cross-sell your credit card, because you're an US student, you're safe, you're going to have a bright futures, you're going to have a very decent income after graduation, because you guys have been carefully chosen. Do I need to care about whether I send you the offer now or 1-2 days later? It doesn't make a huge difference, because you're going to stay in this minimum for 1-2 semesters. So time is less sensitive. So we all know that if you want to get real-time information, it's always more expensive in general, right? So you can afford, multiple different data source and type. I think I don't want to go into details now. We're going to spend more time. We'll talk about Hadoop and Spark, right? And then we go in a bit more in details. This lecture 4 is really trying to give you some basic Python best practice. When you're dealing with data ingestions, when you're dealing with data transformation, when you're dealing with data movements, what are the typical Python functions you can call? And what are some of the good programming practice? The one I showed to you in the trading example is to use variable represent the value. That's basic 101, right? But there are other areas when you do programming that you probably want to try. For example, error handling is one of the very good examples. Let me write down here. How many of you, when you write your script, write your code, have used error handling? Try and catch. Good practice. How about the rest? For example, PD, read Excel from desktop, right? Desktop, let's say, from desktop ABC, Excel. Then, let's say you assign this to a data frame, right? DA, you do something, head, continue, process the data. Typically, when we write a script, you do it in this way. Yeah, but what if this file directory does not even exist? You will return a data frame, which in this case will be a none or empty object. When you call you call head functions on top of empty object, you are going to see potential errors. When you see a potential errors, the Python program will stop here. All the below code will not be able to execute. And assuming you have running these scripts mid of the night, after you run, you just fall asleep. You expect the other mornings, you can see all the result will be computed. But unfortunately, the whole thing stopped here. By the time you realize that it's too late. That's because we didn't have any error handlings. Of course, error handling have some multiple different purpose. Yeah. If in this case, you use error handling, when these things, for example, you put a try here, right? You try here. When these things happens, there's an error, and you catch the error. You're trying to figure out what error is there. If the error say the directory doesn't exist, right away, you use the default directories where the data has been stored, come back here again. The next day when you wake up, your program will continue to run. Will give you everything. This is a simple example. Imagine there's very complex examples dealing with thousands of data sets. The error handling not just help you to recover the wrong when there's exceptions potentially, it also tell you where the error happens. As compared to you go inside, look at the code, imagines. I know that most of us learn Python from school, from toy problems. You don't really do this, right? But for enterprise level project, error handlings, exception handlings is a must. Especially for big scale project. You can't afford not doing this. The example I give you today, I think a simple one, is to explain the concepts. In the reality, I think it's more complex than this, right? So when you trying to do your data ingestions, data processing, you can consider to use these concepts. Yeah, you guys always have your GPT, right? Give the ideas, the GPT will do some implementation for you. You review the code, make sure you understand that, then it becomes yours. Easier, okay? How to extract data from database, this is nothing is the one we just discussed in the trading exercise, right? I gave you some samples. Nothing very difficult, right? This is the SQL Alchemy, right? Allow you connect the different enterprise level of SQL databases. Reading data from CSV, JSON, Parquet. Simple. Difference between ETL and ELT, I think we do discuss this before. Yeah. One is to do transformation first, then load the data. The other one is load all the data within the database, you do transformations. There are pros and cons. I think put it here. In the treating exercise just now, do we care too much difference between ETL and ELT? Anyway, the data size is very small, 2,000 plus the lines. But if it's 2 billion, this may make some major differences. Start to think on that. When the skills comes in, the sequence how you process the data, the way how do you process the information, it does impact the ultimate outcomes. I'm not be able to give you a very complex industry level projects to let you visually feel the impact. I can't. That's perhaps it's also the reasons some of you go for internships. After all, this is a paper exercise, right? You go for internships, you really spend time on the industrial projects, enterprise levels, you feel their impact, you see the impact by yourself. Sometimes make the belief, right? Not just from the paper exercise I share with you. Building ETL pipelines, the name sounds a bit fancy, but it's actually just a simple one, right? Maybe the example I'll give you to is actually very, very simple. You read the CSV files, you define transformation functions, right? Maybe you just want to add in one column, or maybe you want to change everything from uppercase to lowercase. That's also transformations. And the last one is loading. You can dump into everything into CSV, or you can put them into SQL databases, right? But still you can see, try and catch. Try and catch. So anything wrong, you know the issues, what issue it is. Use the logger. All the examples I give you to you are very, very short ones, mainly to exemplify the concepts. Data transformation, time is late. You guys okay that today I won't drag you until 10 p.m. So I worry that, today is a bit dry, right? Maybe we can stop around 9:40-ish. I don't plan to cover everything today because we really have a lot of pages. Yeah. Data transformations, cleanings. Typical one, dedupe. Deduplications. Why do we need to do a dedupe? Why? repetitive, I think, entries into the system. But why? Is it very common for us to see the repetitive values in the systems? It could be, using the Yahoo Finance just now example. When we extract the data and put them into SQL databases, if we write a script, not very careful, right? Around first time, it pumped the Yahoo 2000 plus of the price into the SQL database. When around second time, it may insert again if my SQL has not been done properly. Because every time I'm doing testing, if around 10 times, maybe there will be 20,000 plus the line of the code. End up, each of the date you have 10 times appear. They are not in sequence because they're not next to each other, because every time you insert 2,000 plus a line in one batch, right? The other one come to second batch. But use your eye, one row by row, you won't see that easily. So it's a good practice. Every time we have a data set, you check. Don't remove first. You check first whether there's a duplication, right? Then you determine what to do. Sometimes the duplication may be legitimate. Not necessarily they are real duplication. It's just that maybe their two data points are exactly the same as each other's. Also, you may want to check the missing values. And just now, the trading data sets, trading exercise, do we see missing values? We do. When we compute the short-term, medium-term moving average, the first few dates is all empties. How do we deal with that? How do we handle that? Are we equal to the set missing? Sometimes, yes. In another scenario, maybe not. In bank setups, can you afford the customer's IC number to be empty? Can you afford the customer's age to be empty? You can't. Then you need to figure out a way how to deal with them. Sometimes you call the customer to fill in the information, but for a less critical field, sometimes maybe you use statistical methods to do imputations. Maybe I fill in average values as compared to no values. I think subsequently, in the subsequent pages, we do give you the Python code snippet to show you how do we do it. Filterings, I think that's one very straightforward, right? Aggregations, you do sums, you do total count, you do group by. Joining, we spend some time discuss left inners, right outer joins. Pivoting, for those of you who are very comfortable using Excel, I don't think I need to explain. Normalizations. What do you mean by normalizations? Sometimes we have variables with a very diverse data range, from 1 to 1,000, 1,000 is too small, from 1 to 1 billion. It's not easy for you to read. So you may want to use some normalization techniques. The value, divide some big numbers, normalize everything between -1 to +1, or from 0 to 1. That's called normalizations. Why do we need to do so? Besides easy to see the gauge, and sometimes maybe in the data mining concepts, I think you also need to do that as well, right? Normalize the variable. And there are a few functions. You can use the actual values minus the mean divided by your standard deviations. That's a way to not do normalization as well. The other way is to use the maximum values minus minimum values so that everything stay within 0 to 1 range. There are more. It's not just transpose is also data transformations. Apply complex function is also data transformations. The one I'm showing to you is really the basic one, very basic ones. You can read through these functions are there. Filtering and selection of the data. This one you make sure these are really, really the basic Python functions. If really that you want to be in a data careers, you cannot afford to know. But look at here, you roughly know what does it do. I don't do code in the last 5-10 years. No, sorry, last 10 years I still do. Last 5 to 6 years I barely doing the codings. But look at here, I still know what does it mean. And I can easily ask GPT to help me to write a code and look at the GPT's result. I know whether it's correct or wrong. Yeah. I don't expect you guys to write every single piece of code from scratch. This is a different era. But I hope at least you guys look at the code, you know what does it mean. Not 100% rely on GPTs. Even like you guys using calculator, but I'm very sure from young in primary school, you still learn how to do summation, subtractions, division, multiplications, right? Even though in future you don't use the manual calculation, but the concepts, the logic already being captured in your minds. The same goes to programming nowadays because of the GPTs. Filter and selection of the data, yeah, I won't repeat here. I think I probably should stop here. I think today we're really going through a lot of hands-on stuff. So far, any of you have any problems? This is lecture 4 ready. Another 2 more lectures, we're going to have the quiz. Of course, we need to do one of the makeup quiz, I think, due to the Chinese New Year holidays. Any of you have any preference for the makeup quiz? That one we do an online approach, right? So I'll let you guys to choose. Do you prefer to do the makeup, I think, in the weekends or weekday? Do you want to see me in the weekends? I'm not going to arrange a makeup class, I think, in Chinese New Year, like the first day or second day. Don't worry, right? I will not. Different dates. Do you want to see me weekday night, or do you want to see me weekend daytimes? I won't wear like this. The reason why I like this is because I just finished work. I doesn't have the time to change. Weekends, something more sporty for me. You're going to see a different version of myself. Raise your hand if you want to see me weekends. Higher. Very few of you, maybe it's a dozen. How many of you want to see me during the weekday night? None. Then we don't do that class. Skip, Ken? No. You guys paid, I think, for the school fee, right? I don't want to give you a discount. Or maybe I do a virtual one. Teams. You guys can relax. Maybe you lie on the bed, look at me to talk. Virtual one. How many of you raise your hands? More. Okay. How do I count class attendance? Your virtual already never mind. Yeah. Hopefully by then, we already have adopt a right proper disciplines. Yeah. Class attendance, effective, I still can count how many people are logged in there, right? Of course, they can log in there, but they do other things. I mean, you are all adults, right? I'm not your parents. I try, but I'm not really your parents, right? I do my part to discipline you, respectfully discipline you guys, right? But if you really decided, you have your own minds, I also respect that as well, right? But sometimes, right, I think I may choose your names, ask you to switch on your cameras, and you answer questions. That's what I do during the COVID-19 periods. We all operate from homes. So I ask people, switch on your cameras, answer the questions. Okay, now, let's choose a day, I think, for the makeup class. I think we do it virtually. We see the date. The date, it doesn't matter if we do it virtually, right? Whether weekends or weekday. Any preference for virtual lessons? Do you want to do it weekday or weekends? Both okay, then it's up to me, Okay. All right. I'll still let you know, give you some guys flexibility, not determine midnight, right? 11 p.m. until 1 a.m. No, I won't do that, right? Proper timings. If it's weekends, I know most of you probably going to wake up late, right? So I won't do 7 a.m., right? Maybe 9 if you really want to do. If it's weekday nights, same time as this. Okay, I think that's all for today. The projects I was slot, I think 2 of you, I think, into project groups.
holiday. Yeah, we are.